Welcome to the Heartbreak to Happiness Show with Sara Davison. If you're struggling with a breakup and you feel shocked, angry, betrayed, devastated, or sad and alone, then this podcast is for you. Best-selling author and award-winning host Sara Davison shares how you too can get on with your life to heal, grow, and move from heartbreak to happiness. Here's your host, Sara Davison.
Welcome back to the show, and today my guest is Marissa Baker. Now, Marissa is the host of Sun Happens podcast. She is a certified life coach with the Life Coach School. She's an influencer with a passion for encouraging others through social media, sprinkled with dark humor and bad dance moves. She's also a motivational speaker who was divorced twice before the age of 30. So I am super excited to welcome Marissa Baker to the show. Welcome, Marissa.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, I just think your story is so inspiring. And I know that it's going to resonate with so many of my listeners. So maybe should we start there? Would you mind sharing what you've been through?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you follow me on social, what you'll hear a lot is, hi, my name's Marissa. I've been married and divorced twice before 30, and this is my story. So yeah, I'm 30 years old, and I found myself in a position where I was filing for my second divorce at 29. So I got married right out of college, was married to him for about a year before I was like, this is not for me. And got out of that really quickly. And before my divorce was finalized, I was still separated. I started dating my second husband. So it took zero time in between relationships to heal, to think about, maybe where I could have grown, and jumped right into that relationship with my second husband. We were married for about 2 years. And I just finalized that divorce in November. And so the short version of my story is that divorce is really freaking hard, and I wish that I would have done the work to maybe have avoided the second one, but I have done so much healing work to get to a place where I feel good again, and I found my joy again, and I'm single and happy and ready for whatever is next.
Wow. I mean, it's an inspiring story because I know a lot of people will be thinking, gosh, if I'd been divorced twice by the age of 30, I'd be thinking, gosh, what's wrong with me? I'm never going to find anyone. Maybe I hate all men. I know a lot of my listeners will be thinking that. I hear it a lot in my coaching clinic. I hate all men. I'm never going to date again. So, let's go back first. You said that a year into your first marriage, you noticed that it wasn't for you. What took you a year, and what was it? What that you maybe didn't see before you got married? Because a year in is not long in, is it?
It's not long at all. Honestly, it just feels like such a blip in my life at this point. But I started dating him in college, and I had only had one other boyfriend before that who had cheated on me. And so I met this guy, my first husband, and there was a lot of red flags and things I didn't understand were red flags because I grew up with a lot of chaos. I had family members that were addicted to drugs or alcoholics. I was molested as a young kid. Just a lot of different things that affected my filter of the world. And so I was used to chaos, and it was familiar to me. And so because of that, I was like, oh, this one looks really good, and it feels familiar. That feels a lot like my home life. So this must mean this is good for me.
Yeah.
And so I was so unaware. I lacked so much awareness in my first marriage, but I just remember feeling so bad all the time, and I didn't know how to explain it. So I couldn't have told you at the time that it was the way he talked down to me, or the way that he didn't communicate, but rather like threw things across the room. Like I didn't know that wasn't normal. And I also didn't know how to communicate my feelings. So paired with my avoidance of conflict and intimacy and his chaotic life. We were like just like a storm waiting to happen. And that was the craziest, hardest year ever because I didn't know what I was feeling or how to put a finger on it. And so instead I was, like self-harming and doing other things to try and feel better. And I just realized I'm not going to live a life where I'm having to harm myself to feel something. And so I didn't really know why I left. I just knew I had to leave.
Gosh, what a story. And I
Yeah.
think it's so true, isn't it, that we learn our coping mechanisms from our families. The environment you grow up, that becomes normality. And why wouldn't it be? That's all you know. You grow up and you think this is marriage, this is love, this is whatever my parents are doing, that's what everyone does. And again, for people listening, it's really important us as parents to think about that when we're going through breakups as well, because our kids are learning that's normal, like you did, and then thinking, right, I've got to look for someone to fit chaos, and
Yeah.
then in he came. So I guess that's it's understandable, but wow, what a strength to be able to leave, because if you were self-harming, you must have been at a pretty low point. So how did you get that sort of strength to get back up? Was it because you met somebody else then, or was it just you made that decision?
I made the decision before I had met my second husband, but he definitely helped, right? Because it was like, oh, well, if I could jump into this relationship, then I don't have to think about my grief from here. But what I will say is because of that lack of awareness, I definitely used a lot of distractions to get through it. Would not advise it, but like at the time, my ex-boyfriend was like hospitalized because, whatever, and he was in a coma for a month. And so instead of like feeling my feelings and reflecting on the relationship, I was like, oh, I'll drive back and forth to the hospital. I'll be there for him. I'll go on Tinder. I'll meet this new guy. I'll just double down at work. And I got through it because I just pretended it wasn't there. And that is really that mindset, that toxic positivity and distracting myself is really kind of what got me to where I am now with my second divorce. And yeah.
Yeah, I guess if you go straight into something else without feeling, then obviously you're dragging that baggage in with you. As I know, lots of people here will have done that. I've certainly done that in relationships in the past. So yeah, I mean, and then you sort of wake up in the middle of another relationship thinking, what am I doing? Were you repeating the same patterns with husband number two?
I was like, and I think that's why I believe so much in taking extreme ownership, because I don't know that had I not gotten married the second time, that I would have been forced to take full ownership. I would have constantly pointed at my first ex-husband and been like, this is all your fault. I had nothing to do with this. And really, it's all of it comes back to me. And, a lot of times that's really hard to hear because it's like you don't want to own that, like, I played such a big role in both of these relationships failing. But what I learned is that when I can say, okay, how did Marissa contribute, then I get to take my power back and figure out how do I heal and grow from here. So, but to your question, yeah, I didn't communicate at all. I was still being toxically positive. So like if something my partner did bothered me, it was, oh no, it's fine. I have to keep the peace. Don't say anything. And I would just hold things in, never say anything. Then I started doing the thing again where I was self-harming instead of speaking my truth. I did not set healthy boundaries. And I picked a partner that still was a little bit, I don't want to say chaotic because he was far less chaotic, but the way we worked, it was still chaotic and still kind of going back to what I used to know rather than creating a new life for myself. So yeah, and that's the only reason I know that I have to take full ownership because I saw so many repetitive things for myself.
Yeah, gosh. I mean, full credit to you, because it is so hard. I mean, I came out of a toxic relationship, but my ex met somebody else. So, there was only one way for me to go. I mean, I was getting out of that, but I was still really hurt. For me to stay in it, even when it was not great, and make that decision, I think is pretty hard. And a lot of people stay in toxic relationships because of that cycle, which takes you through the highs, the lows, but then you have a high. So you stay, don't you? You don't get out, because there is that, you're always living in the hope that it's going to stay good. But when
Yeah.
it's good, it's amazing. So how did you break that cycle and get out?
Yeah. I just, I'm trying to figure out the best way to answer this, but I feel like a lot of the toxic cycle was me. And so when I stopped playing into this, then our relationship just kind of looked like a heartbeat with no heartbeat, like it was like a flatline relationship. Like we didn't communicate, we never hung out, I was never home. And I just started realizing I'm not happy here. My energy feels lower when I'm around this person. I wasn't helping at home. And I just thought, okay, I have two options because being married to my second ex-husband was absolutely not the worst thing by any means. But I just kept thinking I can have a good life or I can have an exceptional life where I feel at peace and I can be my full authentic self. And I might feel lonely at times, but right now I feel alone in this. So, like, do I settle for good or great?
Yeah, I love what you just said because I hear it all the time. And I know for me, I felt lonelier in my marriage than I did.
Mm,
And I noticed that as soon as I came out of it and I had all my friends and my family around, because everyone was shocked. Everyone was like, oh my goodness, I don't understand this. So
yeah.
you get so much love and people step up for you. And I was like, oh my God, I feel really loved. And I think I haven't felt like that for actually
Uh,
a really long time, right?
yeah.
Is that what you noticed as you came out?
Yeah, there were a lot of people that were there for me. I think the greatest lesson that I've learned is that I had been searching for somebody else to love me for so long. Like, how dare him not make me feel loved and comforted or whatever. But I realized I could give that to myself. And when I started genuinely liking who I am and knowing myself and being like, wow, I love that I'm a person who loves the sunshine and wants to listen to bird song and talks like crazy fast when she gets excited, then it was also a lot easier to accept the love that other people were trying to give me, romantic or not. And so, yeah, I felt a lot more love, not just from others, but from myself. And I still feel like I just feel so full. I'm like, wow, I've been single for like a year now. And I'm like, I just feel so loved all the time.
Oh, I love that. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So for people listening right now, thinking this is what I want. I want to feel loved all the time, but be happy to be on my own. Because
Mm,
a lot of people are scared to be on their own. I think in my coaching clinic, it's one of the biggest fears I hear. Like, what if nobody loves me again? What if
yeah.
now that's it? I'm on my own forever. And getting to that point really quickly, actually, within 12 months, where you're actually super happy to be single. Tell us how is that possible? Where do people start who are listening?
Mm. I stopped like judging myself and shaming myself. And I just allowed myself to feel whatever feeling I was having. And so, what I mean by that is, I think a lot of people, including myself, try to skip the grief stage. And they're like, I just want to feel better. I just want to be right here. And then it like actually ends up prolonging the grief. I just kind of sat down multiple times and I was like, I'm just going to let myself feel this. Like, I'd get in a fetal position on my floor and I'd cry and I'd, you know, for lack of being cliche, I'd sit with my inner child and be like, what do you need right now? What is hurting you so bad? Like, and I didn't shy away from it, which, like I said, I had done for the first 29 years. So it was really the first time in my life that I said, I'm going to feel good, bad, and ugly. I'm going to allow it to be there. And when I allowed those, I don't want to say bad, but when I allowed the grieving and those feelings to be there, it opened up the possibilities in my mind to also be able to believe that there was something more for me because I wasn't resisting. Like it's like all my brain power was focused on resist, resist, resist. And so when I allowed myself to feel, it opened up this space to be like, but what if there is more for me? And what if life could be really great and you could love yourself and do it without being in a romantic relationship?
Oh, I love that. I mean, just that question alone is like focusing you on so much more positive things for the future and opportunities rather than, why don't they love me or why didn't it work out or what could I have done better? So
Yeah.
really powerful question. So I mean, I know that a lot of people listening will have done that ugly crying on the bathroom floor, they'd have gone through all that. But sometimes you can get stuck there, can't you? So shifting your focus onto, okay, what could be is a really positive way to start that process. And then I guess you have to back that up with some action, right? Which may not feel comfortable, I guess, at that time. You may just want to stay under the duvet and eating crisps or whatever you're doing, you know?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And to be fair, sometimes I still do, right? I always joke that my coping mechanism of choice was binge emotional eating. And so if I start to feel really strong feelings, I'm like, where's the mac and cheese? You know? And so I think so much of the healing process is we judge ourselves for not being here yet. And it's okay to kind of look at ourselves with compassionate curiosity and to challenge those thoughts that keep us right here stuck in something. And but to your point, you're right. Like if I'm having thoughts, oh, I'm not good enough, or no one's ever going to love me, I wouldn't want to get out of bed either. But what I would challenge people is if you are in that mindset, regardless of what it is you're thinking about yourself or making the divorce mean about yourself, is don't be afraid to just question that thought. You can stay in bed if you want, stay in bed and be crying, and then just think, well, is that totally true? Like, am I not good enough? And what I have found is when I can question my thoughts with compassion and ask a different question, like the question I just asked, then it was like day after day, it was like the scales just started to tip. And it was like, oh, okay, I do want to get out of bed today and maybe I'll meal prep. And then it was, now I'll start a new hobby. And yeah, it's like the scale just starts to tip and it's so lovely, but it starts with not believing everything that your mind is telling you.
Yeah, that's such good advice. Not believing everything your mind tells you, because your brain has to come up with an answer, right? So if you ask it a negative question, it's going to come up with a disempowering answer, which then if you start to believe that, then that reinforces itself and it becomes more of a reality in your mind. And then it's it's a lot harder to break. You definitely can. And that's what you and I teach, I guess. So okay, so I really like that. I think not believing the things you're saying to yourself is really important. So once you've got that done, how do you actually, get out? And you said, you were up there, but I mean, I'm looking at you and you're glowing with positivity and energy. And, for people who are thinking, I'm not there yet, and I do want to do something, where can they start to get out there? I mean, I know a lot of people say, I don't know many people that are divorced. Most of my friends are in couples. That can make it quite tricky, can't it?
Are you struggling to cope with your breakup or divorce? Are you feeling devastated, heartbroken, sad, and anxious? If so, please know that you are not alone and there is help available. Sara Davison, best known as the Divorce Coach, and her team of accredited coaches are here to offer you the support and guidance you need to navigate all areas of your breakup, take back your control, and start feeling happy again. Sara will show you how to dial down those controlling negative emotions, unhook from your ex, get back in the driving seat of your life, and design a future you are excited to live. Sara has a range of solutions to support any breakup, including free guides, one-to-one coaching, her Heartbreak to Happiness virtual retreats, live retreats, and you can even train to be a breakup and divorce coach with Sara too. Visit www.saradavison.com today and start to feel happy again.
Where can they start to get out there? I mean, I know a lot of people say, I don't know many people that are divorced. Most of my friends are in couples. That can make it quite tricky, can't it?
Yeah. I think you have to do it scared, right? So you're not going to feel motivated or inspired or like you want to get up and get out into the world. So I think you kind of just have to choose to do it. Like for me, some of those things were I have what's called a Start Today journal by Rachel Hollis. And every day you write 5 things that you're grateful for. And then you write 10 affirmations about who you want to be 10 years from now, but you write it as if you've already gotten there. And so it was so hard, and this is just an example, to wake up every day and to establish that habit. And most mornings I'm like, I don't want to do this. But after I would get it done, after I'd write the 5 things I'm grateful for, then suddenly I was like, oh, wait, I do like this. And so I think the important thing is people have to remember that there's 2 brains, well, what I say, right? You've got the primitive brain, and then you've got the brain that's like the higher consciousness, prefrontal cortex. And this brain, the primitive brain, is trying to protect you. Like this brain is trying to be like, don't do that. That's not comfortable. And it could be even something that's good for you. Like if you notice, like if you ever try to start working out, the brain's like, oh, we don't normally do that. This is weird. Just don't do that. And so that's the same thing when trying to get out into the world and just, whether it be dating or whether it just be finding your joy again or creating a new hobby. And then you have this higher brain, the prefrontal cortex, that goes, okay, this is what I want. This is where I want to be. Here's all the things I need to do to get there. And how do I choose to do this thing? Even though this primitive brain is like, don't do that. We'll die if we do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, I love that. Do it scared. I think that's great, because a lot of people wait till they feel comfortable, but actually sometimes that doesn't come, and you've got to push yourself out of that comfort zone, right? At some point, otherwise things are going to stay the same. So
Yeah.
super important. Now, you mentioned something earlier about compassion and curiosity, and I love those two words. I think they're really important. Compassion, self-care, looking after yourself. I think a lot of people will see that as selfish in the early days, right? A lot of my clients say, I struggle with looking after me. I'm so used to doing something for everybody else. So what's your advice on starting to take, as you said, ownership for looking after that and being compassionate?
Yeah. I think the greatest gift that you can give other people is by taking care of yourself first. And, I guess when you're in this field, in the space that we're in, we're like, no, exactly. We're like, that's normal. You should. But a lot of people are giving so much to other people, and obviously then their cup is empty. Um, and so I just want to encourage people that if you do take the time to fill your cup and take care of you and learn to like yourself and be alone with yourself, it's only going to enhance your ability to love other people better, to show up for them, to listen to them, to be empathetic, to, I don't know, help them move out of their house, whatever it may be. If you're a helper and you're like, I can't take care of myself, just know that if you do, you'll be able to help more.
Exactly. I love that. I really do. It's so true. It's so true. And tell us a little bit about curiosity, because that's quite a fun word. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so compassionate curiosity to me goes hand in hand with shame. And so many of us, including myself, love to shame ourselves. Like you said, something must be wrong with me. I'm the problem. No one will ever love me again. Why would I do that? You're stupid. You're crazy. Whatever the things that we're telling ourselves. And so I just decided one day, I'm like, I'm not going to do it anymore. Like, I'm just not going to be mean to myself. And so instead of, shooting all over myself, shooting and hating myself, I'm going to just kind of start to question things with kindness. And it goes back to that point earlier of, hey, Marissa, we did something that we maybe didn't love, but like, no worries. Let's just talk about, why do we think that we did that? And when you approach yourself with compassion and just asking yourself questions, then there's not this like shame cycle of, I don't know, like I feel like it just stops the shame in its tracks. Like when it's just shame, you're in this cycle of shame begets shame begets shame. And then you continue to do the things that you're trying to quit doing. Whereas it's like, if you come in and you meet this shame with compassionate curiosity, then you're open to be able to be like, oh, here's why I did that thing. And because you're compassionate with yourself, then you can go down a road where you can maybe stop doing the things that don't align with who you are. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. I think it's really important to be consciously aware of our behaviors, because a lot of them will be programmed, like you said before, from when you're growing up. This is what you know, this is what is normal. And we adopt those strategies and behaviors because we think that's just the only option. But actually, as we go through our own life experiences, if we're watching and looking like with perspective on what we're doing, we can then shift that unconscious behavior to conscious. And once it becomes conscious, that's where we are able to use it, do something with it, take our control back over it. Now, I mean, I loved what you said at the beginning about being your authentic self. And I do think, I talk a lot about shining your light and just being comfortable with being who you are. Like, not everyone is going to like you. There's going to be people out there that don't, but that's okay, because, there's some people you don't like, right? So we're all okay with that. So But how do you get to the state where you feel you are being authentic? I guess that's the question for most people, I think.
Yeah, authenticity, I'm going to start with this, is so scary because it leaves you vulnerable and sometimes open to criticism. And I'll just mention this shortly, but obviously the UK press, the Daily Mail, wrote an article about me after finding my TikTok about saying that I had been married and divorced twice before 30. But the title of it was "Life Coaches Branded a Joke After Revealing She's Been Married and Divorced Twice Before 30." And it was in that moment that I realized how tough authenticity is because I got online to not only feel less alone, but to share my authentic story so that others could feel less alone and I could help them navigate if they're going through something similar. But like I said, when you are authentic and you put yourself out there, people won't always like it. And it usually has nothing to do with you, but they have very strong opinions about it. And so I know that I'm being authentic when I am sharing my honest story without having that fear of other people's opinions, right? Because before almost every single post or even jumping on this podcast, I'm like, what will they think about this? What will they say about me? And then I'm like, okay, but I know who I am. And so generally, like understanding how I know when I'm being authentic, though, outside of the other people's opinions. And I don't know if you teach this or not, or how familiar your listeners are, but I've learned to value visceral intelligence, which is the intelligence of your body. And so many times, when something is a yes, your body will feel like open and expansive, and you'll get goosebumps, and it just feels like good and light and like love. And then if something's a no, you'll feel that tension, like your shoulders are tight and your chest is tight and you're like, you feel small and not expansive at all. And so, yeah. So when I'm not worried about other people's opinions and when I feel expansive and open, I'm like, okay, here we are. Like, this is Marissa right here.
Yeah, and I love that because and I sort of talk about that in a different way, like your body's internal burger alarm, and it will go off if something isn't right. But a lot of the time, especially if you come out of a toxic relationship, we don't listen to that enough.
Yeah.
So we override it. So yeah, I'm all for that. And listening to your body and what your body's telling you is so important. And I think, just learning to think, accept yourself. You've got to do it first for others to accept you the way you are. But I think, learning to just love the way you are. And if there's areas you want to improve, by all means, go do that. But, just knowing that you're the best, just the way you are, you're just good enough the way you are. And that's enough is really important. I do think it's hard though, when you come out of a difficult breakup to have that confidence. And I think that is the baby steps and looking after yourself. And maybe even getting back out there on the dating game again. I know you're out there dating. Have you got any advice? Have you got any advice or what not to do for people listening who are thinking about getting back out there again?
Dating in 2022 is mortifying. Just kidding. It's actually not that bad. But once you learn to love yourself and you have boundaries for yourself and you have like standards, I think dating does become a little bit harder because, before Marissa would have just gone for anyone that gave her attention and told her that she was great. And now I'm navigating it. And you really do have to meet a bunch of people and be willing to get to know them to then most of the times be like, oh, this doesn't align with me. I will say some of my biggest frustrations in this whole process though is like people that are just not forthcoming and honest. Like, I've never dealt with that in my life. Like, people always just kind of were like, oh, we really like you. And I was like, great, let's get married. and so I've never had to date like this. But there's just this weird, like, people will only want one thing from you, but they'll be like, oh, let's go on dates and let's do this. And then it's like, wait, why did you take me on dates if all you wanted was to hook up? Like, just be, forthcoming from the beginning. So it's a different road that I've never been on, and it's a little uncomfy, but I'm having fun navigating it and learning what my expectations are from other people. It's like, oh, there's a little bit of manipulation there. Don't like that. You're out. Or whatever it is. I'm having fun, but I'm also like, oh, I'm terrified.
Yeah, that sounds like the dating world. And I think you're spot on with your advice about setting your boundaries. I think, knowing what your red flags are, spotting them, just gives you that safety net as when you're dating. So if they do come up, you're not thinking, oh, I'll give them another chance, or oh well, maybe next time round she won't be so bad. It's like, no, just learn. And if they're showing you who they are, believe them and get the hell out now.
Yes, preach. I'm here for that.
Yeah, we've all been there, but it makes it a little bit easier, I think, as well. And you get toughened up a bit because there's a lot of ghosting, isn't there, where you'll think you're getting on well and then they just disappear and you're like, oh, okay, you were like my favorite out of everyone and now you've just sort of gone. Oh, what next? So I think you do toughen up, don't you?
You do. You like stop taking things so personal, and it's like you have to toughen up, because the way the dating world is right now with these dating apps, there's a million options at any given time. So like people don't have to keep the conversation going with you because they've got 13 other people that they could be like, hey, what's up? You want to hang out? So yeah, you just kind of stop taking it personal. If they ghost you, you get ghosted and you're like, whatever,
Yeah.
there's always going to be someone. Like a good quote for your listeners is, the prize never chases. And I think if you consider yourself the prize, if someone is just not interested or they ghost you, it's like, you're lost, because I'm really great. I'm hilarious and have a good time. So just bye.
Yeah, I love that. The prize never chases. That's brilliant. I love it. And that's so true. And that's where we need to be, isn't it? To have enough self-worth and self-value and self-esteem that we're not going to be chasing people. If they're not interested, jog on. That's what I say.
Yes.
Jog on.
Yes. Bye, Felicia.
Oh my goodness, it's so great talking to you. Where can people find you, Marissa, if they want to find out more about you? Obviously, I know you're all over social, but tell us exactly where to find you.
Yes. So my personal pages on TikTok and Instagram are the Marissa Baker. Those are the same handle. And then my brand, which is Sun Happens, is Sun Happens Official on Instagram. And that's like sun, SUN, like the sun, because we're creating our own sunshine. And it's a play on shit happens. So it's Sun Happens Official.
Awesome. Now I have one last question for you that I ask all my guests. As you know, my podcast is called Heartbreak to Happiness. And I think it's really important to know what happiness is for you so that you can tap into it. And whenever life gets a little bit tough, or maybe you've been ghosted on a dating app. So what is happiness for you, Marissa?
Wow. I love this question. Happiness for me is really truly getting to be the most authentic version of myself, no matter what, right? Like if someone asks me, hey, do you want to go to the movies tonight? And I don't want to, being able to be like, no, I don't. And right. And then walking confidently in that. And so I just love the freedom of being who I am, no matter what, and being fully honest with people about who I am, and being okay if they choose to be around me or not. So yeah, because I like me, and that just makes me happy.
Oh, well, I like you too. I'm sure all my listeners like you now. You've been a fabulous guest. Thank you for spending your time with us today. I love what you've been sharing. And yeah, thank you for being here, Marissa.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Anything that helps other people believe that there is hope on the other side of the heartbreak and the grieving that they might be going through, I'm here for it.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. That's it for today's episode. Do head on over to the Marissa Baker on Instagram and TikTok to find out more about Marissa and follow her. And I look forward to you joining me on my next episode.
That's it for today's episode of Heartbreak to Happiness. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review to win a free ticket to one of Sara's virtual retreats. The retreats are a transformative combination of live webinars with Sara herself, coupled with empowering online video programs designed to help you cope better with your breakup and start feeling happy again. Thank you, and join us again on the next episode for another dose of Heartbreak to Happiness.